Have you ever stopped to think that some everyday choices might be preventing you from getting rich? These seemingly insignificant actions are actually the main factors holding you back from achieving financial freedom. But what are exactly these habits? And, more importantly, how can we transform them to our benefit? So, wizards, if you want to overcome these 7 habits that keep you poor, follow along with me until the end. Have you noticed how some people seem to have a natural control over their finances, while others constantly struggle to make ends meet? This isn't a matter of luck, but rather discipline. Today, our goal is to precisely pinpoint what keeps us trapped in a state of financial scarcity and how we can break free from these chains. Without further ado, let's get into the habits that have been preventing you from achieving wealth. 1. Not having a budget. Many people underestimate the importance of having a budget, seeing it as a restriction when, in fact, it will provide you with much more freedom and control over your money. Not having a budget is one of the most common habits that keep people in a situation of financial difficulty. Firstly, without a budget, it's hard to have a clear view of where your money is going. This can lead to overspending on things you don't necessarily need. For example, small daily expenses like that extra coffee or unused subscriptions may seem insignificant individually, but when added up, they consume a significant portion of your income. But the idea here isn't just to control these small expenses, but rather to identify where your money is going. How many of you have not felt the sensation of receiving your salary and then, after a few days, opening your banking app and wondering, where did my money go? That's precisely what a budget is for, to put you in control and not be controlled. If someone asked you today, what percentage of your salary do you spend on food each month? And on clothing and footwear, how much does that represent in your annual income? Without a budget, it's very difficult to answer these questions accurately. Moreover, the absence of a budget prevents you from preparing for unexpected expenses. Without a financial reserve, unplanned events like a broken car or an emergency visit to the doctor can turn into major financial crises, leading to debt to cover these expenses. But how can you change this habit? The first step is simply to start. Create a budget that reflects your actual income and expenses. This not only includes your regular bills, but also your short and long-term savings goals. To assist you in this task, I'll leave a simplified budget template in the description of this video, but feel free to create your own method if you find it necessary. But be careful. Having a budget just for the sake of it is not the solution. It's necessary to review and update it regularly. Adjusting unnecessary expenses, redefining savings goals, for example. Lastly, involve your family in the budgeting process. Openly discussing finances with partners or children creates a supportive environment and helps keep everyone on the same page regarding the family's financial goals. A practical example of structuring an effective budget involves the 50-30-20 rule. According to this rule, 50% of your income should be allocated to needs, such as rent or mortgage, utility bills, food, and transportation. These are expenses you can't avoid, but it's important to stay within this limit to ensure there's room for other areas of your budget. 30% can be allocated to your wants. This includes dining out, entertainment, hobbies, and other non-essential expenses. While it's important to allow yourself to enjoy life, keeping these expenses within a third of your income helps prevent impulse spending from harming your finances. This is where many people can find opportunities to cut expenses without feeling like they're depriving themselves of everything they enjoy. Finally, the remaining 20% should be allocated to savings and investment. This includes contributions to your emergency fund, retirement plans, investments, and debt repayment. Starting the habit of saving a fraction of your income early on can dramatically impact your financial future. For example, if you start saving $400 per month with a 1% monthly return, compounded interest, in 30 years, you would have accumulated over $1 million. 2. Living beyond your means. Living beyond your means is one of the most common habits. This behavior not only prevents the accumulation of wealth, but also creates a vicious cycle of stress and debt that can be difficult to break. But what exactly does it mean to live beyond your means? Simply put, it's spending more money than you earn. This can range from impulsive purchases to committing a large portion of income to housing beyond your current means. A direct consequence of this behavior is debt. Credit cards, personal loans, and financing quickly accumulate, generating increasingly higher interest rates. The problem worsens even more when we use new loans to pay off existing debts, creating a snowball effect. Additionally, living in this constant state of financial imbalance prevents any attempt to save for the future, whether for retirement, education, or even an emergency fund. But why do we fall into this trap? Often, it's a matter of social perception and pressure to maintain an image of success. We're bombarded with images associating happiness and fulfillment with the possession of material goods. This leads us to make financial choices based on the desire to be accepted or admired by our peers, rather than basing these choices on our actual financial capabilities and long-term goals. Here's a thought-provoking phrase for reflection: wizards. Live a few years like nobody wants, to enjoy the rest of your life like nobody can. The good news is that it's possible to change this habit. The first step is to recognize and accept your current financial situation. Then, develop a strategy with tangible ways to increase your earnings, so that you can also progress in your lifestyle without compromising your financial future. One tip that can help you start changing this trajectory is to differentiate between wants and needs. Needs are expenses you can't avoid, such as housing, food, and health. Wants, on the other hand, include things that enhance your life, but which you can do without if necessary. When making purchases, ask yourself if the item is truly necessary or if it's just a want. If it's a want, assess if you have room in your budget for it. Adopt the rule of waiting before making non-essential purchases. For example, if you see something you want to buy, wait 48 hours before making a final decision. This period of reflection can help determine if the purchase is truly important to you, or if it was just a momentary desire. Often, we find that the urge to buy something disappears after this waiting period. Adopting these simple practices can make a big difference in your life. 3. Impulse buying. The first step to combat impulse buying is to recognize the emotional triggers that lead to this behavior. Often, we make impulsive purchases as a form of compensation, whether to improve our mood, celebrate a success, or even to comfort ourselves in times of sadness or stress. This quest for instant gratification, however, comes with a high price, accumulating debt and consuming resources that could be better invested in our future. An effective strategy to control impulse buying is the one we mentioned earlier, waiting 48 hours before making a decision to buy something that isn't essential. For those struggling with the habit of impulse buying, considering the long-term impact of these decisions is crucial. Each impulsive purchase may seem small individually, but together, they can represent a significant portion of your income. There's no magic formula that will prevent you from making these types of purchases, as it's often tied to psychology. However, what we can do is create barriers that make this habit more difficult. For example, whenever you know you'll be passing by a store you really like, avoid carrying cash or a credit card. If necessary, reduce the credit card limit, or ask a trusted person to hold onto your wallet. When going shopping, always make a list of what you really need to buy. Focus on the items you've listed. This will help you stay focused and avoid buying unnecessary things. Avoid walking through places that may trigger your emotional impulses, such as shopping malls, commercial galleries, department stores, among others. And of course, seek help from a professional. Sometimes, investing in a few sessions with a psychologist can be the best investment you make. 4. Buying what you don't need or will rarely use. This habit is closely related to the previous one. Often, this behavior originates from a momentary impulse, an attractive promotion, or the influence of social media, where the presentation of an idealized lifestyle pressures us to acquire items that contribute little to our real happiness or well-being. A classic example is specialized kitchen appliances that promise to transform our culinary life. From yogurt makers to bread machines, these gadgets take up space in the kitchen and are used only a few times before being forgotten. Similarly, exercise equipment such as treadmills and stationary bikes often turn into expensive clothes hangers when the initial motivation to exercise at home diminishes. For these more expensive items, perhaps, only the 48-hour rule isn't enough. When it comes to home equipment, a good strategy is to use the concept of 30 days. It works as follows. For 15 days, live as if you had already bought the equipment. For example, if it's a treadmill, Set a time to walk. Start keeping track of how many times you actually use it during these 15 days. And of course, no cheating allowed. The time must be dedicated to it. In the next 15 days, look for alternatives that can replace this equipment. In the case of a treadmill, you could walk on the street, in parks, or at sports gyms. Engage in these activities during this period, and at the end of the 30 days, ask yourself the following questions. Did I really use the equipment as I thought I would? Is there a cheaper or free way to do this that achieves the same results? Reflect on your answers and only then make the decision to buy or not. The practice of letting go can also be incredibly liberating and financially beneficial. By regularly reviewing your belongings and getting rid of what is not used or needed, you create space in your life for what truly matters. Additionally, selling items in good condition that you don't use can generate extra income. By adopting a more conscious and intentional approach to shopping, you can not only save more money, but also increase your overall well-being by creating a living environment that truly reflects your priorities and values. 5. Not having the habit of saving money. This habit, or rather the lack thereof, creates vulnerability in your financial structure, leaving you exposed to emergencies and with a sense of insecurity. When we live solely to satisfy immediate needs and desires, we lose the ability to see the bigger picture, where asset accumulation and wealth generation become possible. The importance of saving money goes beyond simply creating an emergency fund. It's about your financial freedom. The freedom to make choices without feeling guilty about money, the freedom to pursue goals without fear of unforeseen circumstances, and the freedom to live the life you've always wanted. Without the habit of saving, every unforeseen event becomes a crisis, every dream seems distant, and dependence on a salary becomes a difficult trap to escape. Starting to save money requires a mindset shift above all else. Often, we think we can only start saving when we earn more. However, the truth is that the act of saving doesn't depend on how much you earn. Starting small is better than not starting at all. Even if it's a modest amount, the practice of saving regularly teaches discipline. Incorporating the habit of saving money into your monthly budget as a fixed expense can change your perspective on saving. Instead of seeing savings as something you do with what's left at the end of the month, prioritize it as part of your regular expenses. This way, you ensure that you're always building your financial future, regardless of how tempting immediate expenses may be. Using technology to your advantage can be a great facilitator. Nowadays, there are various personal finance apps that can automate the saving process, making it less burdensome and more efficient. Another way is to set up an automatic payment order to your savings account as soon as your salary is deposited into your checking account. 6. Lack of financial goals. Financial goals give meaning to the act of saving. Saving money just for the sake of it doesn't make much sense. Goals establish the reason for saving, and they can be diverse. For example, an emergency fund, typically ranging from 6 to 12 times your monthly expenses. Upon reaching this goal, the money should be invested for potential emergencies. Another example is buying a car or even an essential household appliance. Instead of installment payments with high interest rates, it's much better to save and invest that money to acquire the item without harming your budget and also potentially benefiting from cash discounts. A practical example of this could be acquiring a new kitchen. Suppose the desired model costs $5,000. You can plan to save 10% of your monthly income for this purchase. For someone with a monthly income of $5,000, this would mean saving $500 per month. With this plan, you could reach your goal in 10 months. This brings us to another aspect of goals. Besides the target amount, it's necessary to establish a time frame that aligns with your current income. With all this information, your future planning will become much easier and predictable, avoiding many financial risks. Furthermore, in terms of time, it's important to differentiate between short, medium, and long-term goals based on your priorities and objectives. Retirement, for example, isn't a goal for 1 or 2 years. It requires much more than that. For the average person, it typically spans 20 to 30 years, involving investing around 15% of your income. This requires discipline, which is directly linked to reward. And the reward in this case is being able to have a peaceful retirement without needing to depend on children or the government for support and to enjoy life. And taking advantage of the topic of discipline, let's move on to the last habit you should avoid. 7. Lack of financial discipline. The lack of financial discipline is one of the biggest obstacles on the path to achieving financial stability and independence. This habit, or the absence thereof, manifests in various ways, from excessive and uncontrolled spending to the inability to delay immediate gratification. Without financial discipline, it's easy to fall into debt, spending more than one earns and accumulating debts that can take years to repay. Having financial discipline entails overcoming all the previous habits. Without a budget, it's easy to spend impulsively, leaving little or no resources for saving or investment. The lack of financial discipline often leads to procrastination in making important financial decisions, such as starting to invest or planning for retirement. Many postpone these actions, thinking there will always be time to start in the future. However, time is one of the most valuable assets when it comes to building wealth. The earlier you start saving and investing, even if it's a small amount, the greater your potential for long-term financial growth. To overcome this, it's crucial to establish clear and tangible financial goals with short, medium, and long-term objectives and a plan to achieve them. Building and maintaining financial discipline requires conscious and continuous effort. However, the benefits of this discipline, financial stability, asset growth, and the freedom to live as you desire, are immeasurable. Understanding that without financial discipline, no other effort to break the habits that keep us trapped in poverty will be effective. Without it, it's almost impossible to maintain focus towards our long-term financial goals, whether it's saving money, investing, or simply living within our means. And discipline cannot be bought. It's built through consistent and conscious actions. It's important to acknowledge that in the beginning, it will be difficult and full of temptations. But if you truly want to build wealth, you must be disciplined. Hey Wizards! Which of these habits did you recognize in your own life? And more importantly, what steps are you willing to take to overcome them? Remember that change doesn't happen overnight. Every small step, every decision to save instead of spend, every financial goal you commit to achieving, all contribute to a great transformation. The power is in your hands. I hope the knowledge shared in this video has helped you in some way to make the journey towards financial freedom clearer. If you felt that this content has helped you in any way, please leave topics in the comments that you would like to see here. Until next time, Wizards.